Greetings to all of you for a new session in Dostoevsky. So we are now in book 7, and book 7 is something happens in book 7 that perhaps is surprising for some and for all of us to some extent, and that is Alyosha's readiness to fall, if I can call it this way. So Father Zosima had died, and there is this story about the order of putrefaction and so on. So some people believe that because he would have been a holy man, his body would not stink after death. But nevertheless, his body does stink, and people start to talk negatively about Father Zosima, and Alyosha is quite upset. And if you look on page 400, and I lost my page. Just one moment. If you look on page 427, it says something about what Alyosha has in his mind at that moment. It says, but again, it was not miracles he needed, rather some supreme justice that he believed had been violated, and as a consequence of which violation his heart had been so cruelly and unexpectedly wounded. It is for the first time in this novel that we clearly see Alyosha's heart, so Alyosha's soul, since we talk about the philosophy of the human soul, that is wounded. You may remember when we talked about Socrates and about Plato, that Socrates says sometimes that a good man cannot be harmed. And we discussed a little bit about the various ways in which we can understand this statement. But Alyosha has been so far a good human being. And here, for the first time, he is harmed. And Dostoevsky also gives us the reason why the reason why he is harmed, and that is because he was expecting some supreme justice. Now, one can say that what Alyosha does at this moment is that he changes from love to justice. So far, he has given himself to others without having a thought of himself. But now, because of the love he had for another human being, and that is Father Zosima, he wanted for Father Zosima justice to take place in the world. And the memory of Father Zosima, it seems to be tainted by the other people talking negatively about him, and he wanted justice for whom he considered his mentor, for whom he considered a most beloved person, and for whom, and also a person of uh, supreme or a beautiful person. Let me call Father Zosima in this way. It is here in this moment when he talks about justice that Alyosha can change to what Ivan is. Ivan is someone who concentrates a lot on justice. When we talked about the problem of evil, we discussed that one of the ways in which Dostoevsky, well, the only way, let me put it this way, so the only way, I do not know what that noise is, so the only way in which Dostoevsky responds to the problem of evil is love. The presence of love at all moments, regardless of the pain and suffering that we experience. And Ivan, discussed justice. So he put justice before love. He put understanding and uh, judging the events before loving the other person. Now, Alyosha does the same thing here. Because of love, actually, which is quite interesting, because of love, he thinks first of justice. And he wanted justice for Father Zosima. What is the effect of that? Well, the first effect that is that when someone, Rakitin, who's not such a nice guy, but when Rakitin approaches Alyosha, Alyosha replies with something very unusual for him, and he says, "Go away." And actually, Rakitin, that's on page 429, and Rakitin says, "My word, so you're capable of so we are capable of raising our voice just like any other mortal." Alyosha came to our level, uh, if we can say it this way. Anyway, and he tempts him immediately. He gives him a sausage, and he was fasting, and of course he wasn't supposed to eat sausages when you fast. And then he invites him to Grushenka or to Grusha, who has a certain reputation in the novel so far, and that is, how should I call Grushenka? You tell me. I heard students before calling her with various names. I don't want to call her that way, but anyway, like a woman of weak morals. Can I put it this way? You will tell me in the forums if I didn't say it correctly. But why? Because he wants Alyosha to be tempted by Grushenka. Grushenka herself wants to tempt him, and so on. And Alyosha is so distraught and so upset with God because he says, "I am not rebelling against God," and he actually uses Ivan's words. Um, I am losing my page again. I think it was on 429. Yes, I am not rebelling against God. I merely refuse to accept His will, which are Ivan's words, if you remember, in the previous chapters. And he goes to Grushenka. But Grushenka is the one who saves him. And this is so beautiful, I think, in Dostoevsky's book. Because in Dostoevsky, as we discussed before, there are no saints. They are just human beings. Alyosha is a human being too. A human being who falls, a human being who does beautiful things, a human being who loves, a human being who sometimes forgets to love. But he recovers himself and recovers love and um, comes back from justice to truly to love when someone like Grushenka has pity on him. There is a story with a spring onion, and we'll discuss it later. But if you look on page 442, when Grushenka finds out that Starlet Zosima has died, she says, "God, I didn't know." She crossed herself devoutly. "My God, and here I am sitting on his knees." She started as though in panic, jumped up, and sat down on the sofa. At that moment, Grushenka no longer sees Alyosha as an object that she can deal with, that she can take advantage of, but she perceives in him a suffering soul. And perceiving in him a suffering soul, she considers him as a person in suffering, as someone who is perhaps like herself because she has suffered too in life, and she is where she is because of her own suffering, and she returns a favor to him. She escapes him from the hole in which he is about to fall, and then what Alyosha says is beautiful, and we'll end with this, and then in the next video we'll talk about the spring onion. Rakitin, he suddenly pronounced in a loud and firm voice, "Don't mock me for rebelling against my God. I don't want to bear a grudge against you, so try and understand how I feel. I have lost a treasure such as you've never had, so you have no right to judge me now. Look at her. Did you notice how she spared my feelings? When I came here, I expected to find a wicked person. I was attracted to her because I am mean and wicked myself, but instead I found a true sister, a treasure, a loving soul. She spared me. I'm talking about you, Agrafena Alexandrovna." This is Grushenka. "You have uplifted my soul." So Alyosha comes to Grushenka not to be uplifted. Alyosha comes to Grushenka because at that moment he is low, he feels wicked, he's upset, and he wants to indulge into other things. Let me put it this way. So she wants to indulge into that wickedness in some respect, and she wants to be connected with another person, not from as a person to person, but oops, I'm moving this video, not as a person to person, but connected in really taking advantage of another being. He would use Grushenka at that moment, as Grushenka would use him. It's not as if Grushenka would not be using him. But Grushenka, the wicked one, the one who seems to tempt anyone, the one who enjoys being loved or being desired, not loved, by both the father and the son, is at that moment the woman and the human being who perceives in the other human being a suffering soul and gives him a hand, helps him come back from it. We'll talk in the next video about those pingaye.